Familiarity. It's where we get our confidence from. Today I want to talk about it. So I was thinking about where my confidence comes from as a player, and I realized that I often think like, okay, the more dexterity I have, the more confident I am as a player. But when I was thinking about that, well, I realized that if I don't know where to put my fingers in the first place, how do I build dexterity? Right? So, does our confidence come from our dexterity? Yes. But how do we build dexterity in the first place? And how important is it? Well, it's important because we play an instrument that requires dexterity. But what I feel like is we often give this dexterity thing too much attention, especially when we're new, because we're looking at what we can't do instead of focusing on what we can do to build more confidence. And today I just wanted to share a little insight on that I was reflecting on, because I'm always trying to think about different things that, how can I say, that I used to think about when I was younger that kind of made me into the player I am, made me more confident, made me able to get from where I was and to get in through stages where I was stuck to where I'm at now, where I feel more confident and fulfilled as a player. So I want to help you to kind of discover some of those things. And so I was thinking about this idea because I was on YouTube and I saw, I watch a lot of guitar stuff on YouTube, and I saw some guys recently, in the last month or so, that were ridiculous players, like jazz players, rock players, whatever, that mostly use just like their first two fingers to do almost everything when they're fretting hand. And like they were ripping it up. So if they could rip it up with two fingers, and if you have like ridiculous talents like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eric Johnson, who mostly predominantly use they use their first three fingers and not their pinky, I feel like there's this concept that can get us stuck where we feel the need to build up our pinky like if it's the most important thing in the world, when really it's not. Is it important as you want to progress, and if you want to be able to do certain things? Absolutely. But it shouldn't be primary. I think that we should focus more on familiarity in the beginning than dexterity. What do I mean by familiarity? Familiarity is spending the time with your instrument, right, and getting to know where your notes are. Notice I just used my first two fingers. I'm having to be a little deliberate right now because I don't generally just use my first two fingers. It really depends on what I'm going for at the moment, what fingers I use, and you kind of develop those preferences over time. But in the beginning, get yourself one of those chord charts, not chord charts, like diatonic note pattern diagrams, and spend the time to learn the different patterns. I learned all these patterns when I was younger. I learned all these patterns when I was younger, and they bored me to tears, and they still do now, but they're tools that you want to have in your toolbox, assets that you can pull from later. They're part of getting familiar. Another way to get familiar is by writing your own little licks. Like say, like a little pattern that I often use in passing when I'm playing lead is like kind of like one of my little like nuances that I use a lot. And it's basically like a hammer on a pull off, and then going down to the next string and then doing a pull off here, and then I come up with my pinky. So basically what I did is I decided, okay, I like how that sounds. What fingers do I use? And I went and I started it slowly. Oh, I could just use my first 2 fingers to go here. Like that. And then I could use, well, I don't want to use these 2 fingers for this because I don't like how the pull-off feels. Then we do the ring finger and pull off. And then use my pinky because it's conveniently there already. You know? So I spent the time to get familiar with that going really slow, you know? And then you can practice it, you know, one thing at a time, just the different components to get the technique down. Okay, that's the first part of it, and then the second part is... And the third part is just tying it together. And that's how you spend the time to practice and to memorize different patterns. Maybe I want to do a... And then it becomes like an asset that you can pull from as you're playing, these little patterns. But it all comes from familiarity, just like everything else that we do in life. Like right now, I recently started a job within the last year, and this job requires a lot of little skills that you have to master each little skill and tie them all together, just like a lot of things, right? But where's my confidence coming from as I'm developing into a better employee for this job? My confidence is coming from familiarity. Not necessarily how perfect I am at each skill, but how familiar I am and how deliberate I'm executing each tiny skill effectively as I go. The more familiar I am, I know what I have to do. Now I practice executing over and over, and the more I can get it correct, the more confidence I can build and become overall a powerhouse at what I do, which is what we're going for with this thing, right? The guitar. So I just wanted to share that little insight. Hope it helps you. Start practicing your little components, find little nuances you like. Learn where the dots are, where to put your fingers, and spend the time to get familiar. You got to spend time to get familiar. And I know it's hard. Listen, I work like 55, 60 hours a week now, not counting commuting and everything else. But I still try to find a little time, always on the weekends, to develop myself on my instrument. And I'm getting familiar, and I'm doing these things that made me get better and better at what I do from back then when I was a kid. I'm still doing them now to get better and better, and it's a wonderful feeling as you master your craft and you build your confidence up and you start to come into your own with anything you do. So for now, hope that is of benefit to you. Take care and have fun with that.